Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. We have started just a few minutes early. We're going to officially start in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I want to introduce myself. My name is Melissa Tosetti. I am the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons, and I'm a vice president at The Savvy Life.
And we started just a few minutes today to give people a chance to log on and connect with us. And we call this our pre-show. We can't
afford an opening act, so we kind of have to do double billing.
So instead of us juggling or anything like that, you actually had an interesting story that happened to you.
Yeah, and it kind of actually ties in with juggling, or at least in terms of dropping things. So we put up our Christmas tree, like many families did, and set it all up. And after I got it set up, I turned to my wife and said, "Is it leaning a little bit?" And she said, "Oh no, it's fine." Okay, great. So got it all decorated, put it away, and made it through the night. Next morning, I'm in my office working, and I hear a crash tinkle.
Crash tinkle?
Crash tinkle. Yes. And no, what had happened is that, in fact, it was leaning a little bit, and sometime during the middle of the night, it apparently decided to lean a bit more.
Yeah.
And then it got past the critical angle and fell over. Fortunately, we only lost about 3 or 4 ornaments. Not really that bad. We lost one brand new one that she had just bought, so she was very upset about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't, because being the typical, I won't say the typical, I'll say being the stereotypical male, I did not even notice that was on the tree because I'm oblivious to those things. But she was very upset about that. So the point really is, we have all developed some level of instinct and some level of competency. Hi there. Some level of competency in our lives, and one of my levels of competency is noticing when things aren't level. I'm a physicist by training, so I should understand geometry and forces and things like that. And I was concerned about it, and I blew it off. Said, "Oh, that's not, it's not too big of a deal." Listen to your gut.
Yeah.
That's really the point that I want to make here. Is that my gut told me, this isn't right. You should fix it, and I should have fixed it. Right. And I've gotten burned by this many times over, where I look at things and go, that really isn't quite right, but it'll be okay. And then it wasn't okay. As
you shift to the next thing, right? Because we're so busy. It's one of the reasons why we don't take that time or hear when our gut is telling us, hey.
So the only thing that I'm really saying is that, listen, when the synapses fire and tell you something's not right, they're probably right, and you really need to listen to them and not blow them off.
Yeah.
So lesson learned until the next time.
Right. So I hope that your tree stays up. And
so far it's doing well.
I just have cats to, we have a new cat. This is his first Christmas, and it's been a bit of an effort, but he's worth it.
I saw a picture of a cartoon, actually, where somebody had put a Christmas tree inside of a dog kennel with a cat locked outside of it. Some comment about the cat, humans, you've won this round, or something like that. Yeah.
I saw another one with the dog crate around it, or the gate around it, and the cat's on a rope coming down to attack the tree. That would be our cat. Spartacus is very famous for torturing me specifically. Yeah. So again, they're worth it. Yeah. All right, so it is the top of the hour. I want to officially start our session today. My name is Melissa Tosetti, and this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons.
And we are the founders of The Savvy Life, which is a day-to-day financial education company, which sounds very, very boring. Basically, what we do is we help teach people how to spend smart. Just how to become purposeful in their spending, create spending plans, make sure their money's going where they want it to go. That being said, today's topic, actually, we want to focus on something that a lot of folks are starting to think about, and that is their New Year's resolutions for 2020.
Yeah. So jumping a little bit ahead of the holidays, but it's the end of it, and now most people are starting to at least get the idea together of what should they be.
Yeah, as we're like shoving gingerbread cookies into our mouths and stuff like that, we might be thinking about some health goals in 2020, what they might be. Out of curiosity, are you a New Year's resolution maker?
I am not a very strong one. I will tend to, what I usually do is it's semantics, I suppose. I usually kind of look at things of what did I do last year, what can I improve on, and maybe set some specific goals, which is really similar to New Year's resolutions, but I don't call them New Year's resolutions, so that way I can claim that I'm not part of the whole fashion trend.
Well, and the thing that always breaks my heart is when people talk about New Year's resolutions, they automatically, either if they're talking about themselves or they're talking about the populace, it's that we don't keep them.
Yeah.
And I think that, yes, there are people that don't keep their resolutions, but there are so many people that like that make that magic happen. They really do make change. And so I think it's just unfortunate that it has that kind of rim shot joke with it that comes along with it. So we want to talk a little bit about actually how do you set yourself up for success when it comes to setting up your New Year's resolutions, because it really truly there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and there are some ways that are going to really help you make that happen, some ways that are gonna just set yourself up for failure, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So so that being said, do you want to start us off, or you want me to jump in?
Sure. Well, I'll start off with a little bit. We talked about this a little bit earlier, so we can kind of build on that. And that is the idea of understanding the difference between goals and milestones, in my opinion. All right. So a goal is I want to be more fit.
Yeah.
All right. A milestone is I want to do 100 push-ups. All right. So in my mind, your resolution should be, here's what my ultimate goal is, and here are the milestones that I'm going to identify to monitor my progress towards that goal. But it's important to have that there, because the goal should not be, I want to do 100 push-ups.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to do 100 push-ups, and at some point you're going to get to 35 and you're going to be sweating it and aching and wondering, why in the heck am I doing this? What's so magical about 100?
Yeah.
And then
36 is good.
yeah, and then 10 months down the line, you're going to hit that 100 and you're going to, woohoo, I'm done.
Yeah.
Now what? Well, if you set the goal of, I want to be more physically fit, then there's your that's why you're trying to hit this milestone. And then once you hit that milestone, then it becomes much easier to say, okay, I hit that milestone. What's the next milestone in this goal? So when crafting your New Year's resolutions, make sure that you understand the difference between a goal and a milestone. And you need both of them.
Yes, I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
You do need both of them, because without some kind of milestone, you have no idea if you've achieved your goal. Because I want to be more fit.
What does that mean, and how do you measure your progress?
How do you define that? And you know, I talked a couple of videos ago about my friend Joel that has been a huge influence on my own success, my own like striving. And one of the things that he talks about when it comes to goal setting is to really define how that goal is going to make you feel. Which I think is very important.
So technique says, I don't want to be physically fit. I just want to live longer. Well, congratulations. I'm greedy. I want to live longer, and I want to be able to do a whole lot of things. and part of that involves being at least some level of physical fitness, so I can do those things as I get older. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a nicely defined goal, though. So the other aspect of this, though, is so you've defined that I want to do however many push-ups. I want to be physically fit. Okay, that's great. So now you've got to figure out how to actually make that happen.
What's your plan?
Right? What is the plan? Because without that plan, it's nebulous.
Yep. Yeah. And then what happens is you have that goal that you remember, and then September rolls around. It's like, oh yeah, I remember talking about that, and I was going to be physically fit. And it's like, okay, well now it's September, so now I have 3 months, and
ooh, and Thanksgiving's coming up. Why wait? Why start anything now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, technique goes on. You have to setting goals is important. You have to have the steps to complete them, or it's just a dream. Absolutely right. You have to have the steps. So you have what are my goals, what's my milestones, and what actions am I going to take on a schedule to get there?
Yeah. So one of my favorite memes, if you will, is a statement that don't set resolutions to create better habits. And that's what it is all about, is defining those habits. And if you have watched any of our episodes, you know what a massive fan I am of this book right here. Okay, so it's The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Move my hand. Yeah. And
been out for a long time, multiple editions.
Quite a while. Is it multiple editions?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe they've done a couple of revisions.
Yeah. So it's the basic of the book is how do you implement positive new habits, and how do you replace negative habits? And it all boils down to you've got to have a trigger. Please do check it out. I have said multiple times
it's a great book. Very easy to read.
Yeah, I've sold more of his books than I have of our own. But yeah, it's the idea that you have to have some kind of trigger. It's a 3-step process. You have a trigger that reminds you to implement the habit. Number 2, you do the habit. And number 3, you give yourself some kind of reward for implementing the habit, right? And so it's by getting that reward, you're like, oh, I want to do that again the next time. Okay. There's another book that recently came out. I will admit I have not taken the time to read it yet. It is on my list, and it's called Atomic Habits. And I was going to look up who wrote it before this session, and I did not take the time to do that either.
But we'll put it in the notes.
Put it in the notes. Yeah. But I read an article based on somebody who had interviewed the author, and one of my biggest takeaways for that was how, when you're defining habits, define who you want to be when you're implementing that habit. And I love that, because I'm always thinking about, sometimes we get in this mindset that, oh, I'm lazy. I just, I love, popcorn and Netflix. I do. and beer. But I want to implement this habit that, to some extent, it's a different person that has to implement that habit, or a different mindset in order to do it. And so it's about crafting and figuring out how do you think a little bit differently that is going to make you execute that. Yeah,
it's also part of the visualization concept. And the visualization kind of gets on my hairy edge of what you call woo-woo, but the fact of the matter is visualization really does work. And
it's been used by Olympic athletes for decades.
And so again, visualize what you want yourself to be, and then start taking steps to make your current self look like that future self.
Yeah.
And it, like I say, it is right on the cusp of the woo-woo for me, but it really does work.
Yeah, there's
I use it myself, so I know.
Yeah. You can take it a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Yes, use it for good, or use it for it's gonna spiral you down.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to mention in talking about this is that for a lot of people, when they're thinking of New Year's resolutions, it can bring up some negative connotations or some negative emotions around it. And I will confess to you, a couple things. So when I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area about 25 years ago, I came here, it was just a big old ball of hot mess, and I started to get very frustrated and just refused to just continue to be a hot mess, right? And so I started to research the success industry, if you will, and, little by little, like, okay, how do I improve this area of my life? How do I improve this area? So flash forward about 15, maybe 18 years. This was probably maybe 6 years ago. And I just hit a point in December where everybody was talking about their New Year's resolutions, and then I was gassed. My thought was, well, what else is wrong with my life that I can repair now? And it was such a negative way of starting to think about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of floated like that for a couple weeks during the holiday season, which was a huge bummer. And finally decided, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to focus on the next year. I am just going to look back and focus on what did I accomplish this particular year. And it just shifted so much for me. And to be quite frank, I can't even remember if I went ahead and created New Year's resolutions, if that was the catapult. But I remember how powerful it felt to look back and go, oh yeah, knock that out. Well, not quite that, but...
Well, that's incredibly important for a couple of reasons. One is, psychologically, looking back at what you did right the past year is really rewarding.
Yeah.
Because, for all of us, we all have areas that we can improve. We also, all of us, did something right last year. I mean, we survived it. We're still breathing. So we must have done something right. And it's important to, get a little bit of that positive feedback of that. The other thing that's really important, and this is really true, like in a business perspective, and it applies in a personal perspective, is you need to know what you did well last year so that you keep doing it next year.
Yeah.
Right? If something worked for you, whether it's in a business standpoint or whether it's in your personal life, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe tweak it and improve it, but keep doing it. And you don't know what those are unless you stop and review.
Right.
Not to mention, you need to look back at what you did and to figure out what you want to do going in the forward. Having the same resolution year after year after year is incredibly demoralizing. If you had a resolution for 2019 and you did not achieve it at all, then you really need to go back and look, why didn't I achieve it? Is it really not that important to me?
Yeah.
Did I just like not want to focus on it? Was it painful? Can I recast it? And for 2020, you really need to sit down and decide, is that valuable? Do I need to recast it in a way that I can execute it? Or was it a pipe dream and it wasn't really that important to me and I was doing it because somebody told me that I should do it and it really isn't interesting to me? Fine, let it go and don't be guilty about it. But you need to review those things and make the modifications and adjustments so that next year will be more successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. We were talking earlier when we were talking about how important it is to make sure you acknowledge what is working. As we talk about very often on this channel, my husband owns a mixed martial arts school. I teach an MMA-based fitness class at that school a couple nights a week. And one of the things that I am very meticulous about, meticulous isn't the right word, but I'll figure out that later, is to make sure that as students are learning something new, that I'm telling them what they're doing correctly.
Yeah.
It is never oh, how sweet you're doing that punch right or anything like that. It's so easy as you're trying to fix something else to go ahead and ruin what you were doing correctly. So you need to embed in your mind, your muscle memory, if you will, this is the way that should feel, this is the way that should look. I happen to have a very positive personality, and so I try to, again, to be very verbal with students. It's like, I'm not just trying to make you feel better. Yeah. We're just trying to make sure that you continue those good habits.
But it's the same thing also with the work that we do with clients with the Savvy Life.
Absolutely.
Is you want to acknowledge and reward the clients who are doing things, who have good money habits, and tell them, this is good. Keep doing this. This is helping you. Because you don't, one, they need a little bit of, everybody needs positive affirmation. The other, which goes to just what you said, is if I tell you 10 things to fix and you're concentrating on changing those 10 things, you may not remember the 3 things that you were doing really well, and those will start to degrade. So it's important to tell people what they're doing well so they can kind of keep that in mind while they're improving on the other areas. Yeah.
And actually, that is one of my favorite things when we're working with clients, because some clients we're just working with them to create some clarity for them, right? It's not a huge overhaul of their finances or anything. And when we're talking about certain categories that might be dining out or food, or they're spending on entertainment, for example, I'll let them know, my God, you guys are killing it here. And because everybody's in a vacuum, or they're in their own trench. And compared to most other people, they have no idea. Are they on track? Are they not? Do they have good habits? Do they not? And it's funny to me because even, the doctors, the attorneys, like folks that we've worked with will just appreciate that feedback. It's like, okay, good. We're going to keep doing that.
Keep doing. So for New Year's resolutions, take a look back at what you did well. All right. Take a look at the things that you didn't and decide, why didn't I? Is it really important to me? Do I need to change the focus? Look at the difference between milestones and goals. Give yourself a plan with actions so that you can see what you're doing.
Yeah. Break it down. In other words,
manageable steps.
Related. There is a movie on Amazon Prime right now that I cannot get out of my head.
Okay.
It's called Brittany Runs a Marathon. Do not watch it with kids necessarily. It's the trailer makes it look like a comedy, and there are funny aspects to it, but it's like not a punch in the gut, but it is definitely a raw demonstration of somebody who's trying to go from, real dissatisfaction with their life to actually trying to make change. And it is not a smooth path for most people. And this is set in New York. It's not the personality or the story I very much appreciate. The lifestyle in New York, it's different. It's very different than where we live here.
It's a different pace.
It's a different pace, but the story remains the same, and it is absolutely worth watching. And again, it's one of those movies that I can't tell you it's my favorite movie, but I have not been able to stop thinking about it.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, so check it out. Okay. And it's based on a true story too, which is all kinds of awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're doing something different in the way that we're filming things. So I'm going to stand up, stop a camera, start a camera, so things are going to look weird. Bear with us.